Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Odds and Ends here, post-Christmas weekend edition. Zach Ewing along with Devin Jackson and Jim Derry. We'll be joined in a few minutes by Rod Walker, Times-Picayune sports columnist. And, of course, we will spend much of this hour discussing the Saints and the Dolphins coming up at 7:15 in the Superdome, a key game for the Saints, or maybe I should say what's left of the Saints, who have 24 players on the COVID-19 list, including their starting quarterback, Taysom Hill, including 3 key defensive starters, at least 1 key offensive lineman. It's not a pretty situation, guys.
No, it's like nothing I've ever really seen, to be honest. So I mean, you have to be concerned if you're a Saints fan, but at the same time, the show must go on, and you hope that they know what boat they're in. They've been knowing probably before we've known, and so they have to come out with something extra and a special game plan.
Yeah, and speaking of the show going on, I'm here at the Caesar Sportsbook, where it's seriously hopping. This is as crowded as I think I've seen it on a non-weekend, and that's just the post-Christmas crowd, people getting some extra cash and some time off, I guess, and having some fun with it. Long line at the Caesar Sportsbook here at Harrah's behind me. And you can join the fun without even coming to the casino here by downloading the Caesar Sportsbook app, by going to NOLA.com/Caesars. We've got a special bonus in it for you, $100 plus. They haven't quite finalized this yet, but the week of launch, you're going to get an extra dollar for every point scored by the local teams that week. So they're going to have to see exactly when the launch is. It might be Pelicans, it might be LSU basketball, it might be the Saints if they're in the playoffs. So you're going to get actually more than $100 if you sign up for that bonus. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars to do that. And the promo code NOLA1 will already automatically be put in there. As for the Saints game, we see Matthew Batiste telling us, bet on the Saints money line. You get some plus money on that. That line shifted. It was Saints -3 when the line dropped this time last week. Now it's Dolphins -3. Jamie also saying she believes in the Saints. And so the line now Dolphins -3. I've even seen some 3.5 in some places. Caesars has it at 3. And the over-under, by the way, is the lowest in the NFL this season, just 37.5. So obviously the betting line going against the Saints as well, Jim.
Yeah, I actually like this over. Normally, when you have something weird like this, I would take the side that's weird. And they're begging you basically to take the over. In this case, I do like the over. I think that, this is kind of counting on the Saints not being able to do anything. I think it's an overreaction as well to the Saints' 9-0 win last week. Both these teams have a decent defense, but, both have been prone to give up yards against the pass. So it'll be interesting to see how the quarterbacks react. Obviously, Ian Bookman's first start, but I think that total's too low. I've been all over the over even after I found out the news about the Saints and who is and isn't playing. It doesn't affect their offense nearly as much as it does their defense.
Well, and Devin, the other thing here is that the Dolphins defense is good but not great, and the Saints defense has been great when it's been its full self. But tonight you've got no Malcolm Jenkins, no Quan Alexander, and no Demario Davis. So this is not a full string Saints defense by any means.
Yeah, and when the Saints are at full strength, they're one of the best units in the NFL, and we saw that on full display against the Tampa Bay Bucks twice this season. And without Demario Davis, I think that's probably the biggest one of all the injuries, and all the injuries this season and all the things that have gone on. Not having kind of your leader of the defense and someone that is in charge of like the pregame, rituals, getting the team hype. He's not going to be there. And be there in the middle of that defense. I think that's a big blow. But the Saints have been resilient all year, and they'll have to do the same thing tonight.
Well, with that said, let's bring on Rod Walker, sports columnist for the Times-Picayune. He has been around the team. Rod, how are you? Live from the Dome, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm down in a dungeon area of the Dome, so it's not your usual Dome, Superdome background, but yeah, I'm in here.
It's already loud, and they're like 3 hours before game time because they're testing speakers and stuff. So you got to find a quiet spot. I would ask you if you've ever seen anything like this before in your career with what's happening with the Saints this week. but I'm pretty sure the answer is no. So I'll just ask you how weird it has been this week.
It's been pretty weird, I kind of think back to that game last year when the Saints played the Broncos. They didn't have this magnitude as far as numbers. They didn't, but I mean, it was just one position room. The quarterback room got wiped out, so that was pretty weird. Probably the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. But yeah, this week's been weird. Things have gone back to 2020 for us. There was a time when we were interviewing players after practice, but this week, we went back to the Zoom calls and all that. So there's no interaction with players anymore. So that changes. But yeah, this is a really weird week. And the past couple of days, I mean, it was every day there was a new player popping up on his COVID list. And today, obviously, Quan Alexander was the last addition to that list. And the Saints just sent a message out to us, and there aren't any more people added to that list after Quan. So the last number that we had, which is 20, whatever it was, that's the final number going into tonight's game.
So at least the carnage is over. In other words, I guess let's start with the offense. Ian Book's making his first start. I think a lot of people look at that and say, "Man, the Saints are in a heap of trouble," and maybe they are. But if there is a coach in the NFL, you want to have a guy making his first career start at quarterback. Like it just feels like this is a spot, and we just got a comment about it too. Sean Payton, he'll figure it out, and he'll come up with something in the game plan to move the ball in some capacity.
Yeah, that's kind of what Sean Payton does. He comes from that train of thought where he just thinks that there's always a way to win a game, and he's going to do whatever it takes to figure out what that way is. And I think today will be, he's going to put Ian in some good spots where he's not going to be able to, hopefully not lose the game for the team. And, you have to remember this team still has Alvin Kamara on it. And when you got Alvin Kamara, he sort of changes a lot of things. And when we saw what he did last year on Christmas Day, he has that ability to take over a game. And I think he'll be a big part of tonight's game plan. I mean, if Alvin doesn't have a good game, I don't know how they possibly win this game without him. But I do think Ian has the right moxie to do well in this game. I mean, he's a guy that, and obviously college is totally different from Monday Night Football, making your debut. But he's played in some really big games in Notre Dame. And so he's been on a big stage before. I mean, again, not this kind of stage, but he's been on a big stage. Just talking to him this week, we talked to him for the first time since training camp, and he's a guy you can just tell he has the confidence. Like, he's not bothered by the moment. And I know a lot of it may just be him talking, but I don't think he's going to be fazed by the bright lights tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the impression I've gotten, is that he's a real confident guy, and that he's, just planning on getting the job done. The quote that was making the rounds that he, stuck out to everybody, I think, was when he said, "There's lots of excuses, but we're not going to make any of them."
Yeah, that was his thing. He said there are a million excuses and we're not going to use any of them. And, he's a guy, and I said this back in the preseason, and I don't want people to hear this quote and just jump all over it. But, I mean, he has a lot of Drew Brees characteristics. And I don't mean just how he plays, but I mean, he's an undersized guy who kind of plays that same chip on his shoulder. And I just think that could, be big for a guy like this. I just think he needs to have that type of mindset that he does. And again, I mean, in the preseason game that he played in, I mean, he did okay, and we just have to see how he does tonight on the big stage.
Rod, is there any chance that I know we're late in the game now, but is there any chance that any of the players that were on the list, especially some of the early guys, will be able to come off and play? Someone we might not know. Obviously, it's not going to be the quarterbacks. I think we'd know that by now, but any of the other guys that might be able to come off time.
It doesn't look like it. I mean, we got an updated list, and it looks like, in fact, Amy just retweeted it. I missed it while I was answering that first question, but they didn't activate anyone off of the COVID list. So the list that we saw earlier today is the final list. And so, they're going to be missing a big chunk of this team.
Do we know who's going to take over Demario Davis's role as pregame hype guy?
We don't. I tweeted that out on Sunday, I think it was, wondering the same thing. And personally, I think it'll be Mark Ingram, just because he's a guy that's been in the league for a long time. And I think he's the guy that probably would give the best speech. But C.D. Deuce will obviously be a good one as well.
I think it'd be interesting. Yeah.
They have to turn the mics off probably, but yeah, he'd be good for that as well. And, it may be a combination of the both, because there have been times when it was DeMario along with seeded dudes for Quan or whoever. So it'll be a combination, but everything tonight's going to be a group effort. So.
Yeah, I mean, and having said that, Ron, and yes, ESPN would not be able to show a Gardner Johnson hype up huddle, I don't think, but Demario Davis also the green dot, meaning he's the one who communicates with the sideline on defense. And if he was out, I would guess Juan Alexander or Malcolm Jenkins would probably be the next two in line to do that. So do we have any idea who will play that role tonight?
We don't, man. I mean, that's I don't know. Maybe I don't know Marcus Williams on the back end. I don't know. It's just we don't know a lot about what's going on. There's a lot of reshuffling, and they have to make a lot of adjustments, and not just on the defense, but they got to get some special teams guys. Some of these guys want to play some roles that they haven't played before. So I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how they manage all this. And then I mentioned special teams, but special teams coach Darren Rizzi, he's out. So I mean, he's not even there to coordinate all that. So it's going to be just pretty chaotic, I would think, for 3 hours for Sean Payton and his staff tonight.
Hey Rod, I got a question. Who do you think there'll be one player like tonight that you're keeping an eye on that could have a big impact in the game? Obviously, besides like Alvin Kamara, Ian Book, and some of the major names.
I think to me the biggest concern tonight. I mean, obviously Ian Book is what everybody's talking about. He's playing quarterback, but the linebackers is the big question mark. I mean, without DeMario and Quan, and we know how good this defense is with DeMario. We haven't seen him without DeMario in 4 or 5 years. So we know how good he is. We know how good Quan is. So guys like Pete Werner and Zach Vaughn and Andrew Dowell. I mean, Andrew Dowell's kind of been more of a special teams guy. Now he has to be, one of the key players. So I think watching the linebackers is going to be that's the thing I'll be watching the most tonight, just to see how they do. I think the secondary should be fine. I mean, they're still intact. And, the defensive line, you got Cam and you got I guess you have Marcus Davenport. And I mean, you're missing Carl Granderson, who's played really well. But I think the defensive line should be solid. But, yeah, linebackers is going to be a really big question mark for this team tonight.
Looking at the bigger picture, Rod, the Saints and Dolphins are both similar in that they've each had 5-game losing streaks, but each controls their own destiny for the playoffs. Which I don't know how often that ever happens in the NFL with just a couple of weeks left that you can say, yeah, if we keep winning, we're in, despite that 5-game losing streak. That just goes to show the resiliency, I would think, of both teams.
Yeah, it does. Obviously the Saints bounced back and had the 2 big wins. Well, I don't know if you call the Jets a big win, but they had a win against the Jets and a win against the Buccaneers. And then on the other side, you look at the Dolphins. They won 6 in a row, and I mean, they haven't beaten any. I mean, they beat the Jets twice, the Giants once, Panthers once, Texans once, and the Ravens. Now that was a good win. Lamar Jackson was playing, so I mean, you have to credit them for beating Baltimore, I guess. But I mean, they haven't beaten any great teams in that streak, really. So. But they won 6 in a row, which is hard to do in this league, as everybody here knows. So if they can carry that momentum, they're sort of catching a break here, I feel like. I mean, we saw the line move this week. If the Saints are healthy, the Saints are the favorites. But, I mean, the Dolphins are sort of catching a break with all these COVID issues. So, they both have something to play for. And crazy as it sounds, the Dolphins are still mathematically in the race for the AFC East title. I mean, obviously New England would have to lose out, and I mean Buffalo would have to lose out in New England. I think they play head to head one time. So the Dolphins they still have a shot. I mean, it's not going to happen, but they do have a shot. So that's pretty impressive considering what they've gone through this season, especially when they started off so rough.
Yeah, we'll bring up yesterday's results here, or this weekend's results. We have the Thursday and Saturday game on there too, but. Just to your point, any win is a good win, I think. The Texans had COVID issues, and we're still able to beat the Chargers as 13-point underdogs. The Ravens have played well on offense without Lamar Jackson, but their defense has gone haywire. So,
right.
When you it's any given Sunday is the old cliche. But when you look at this list, Rod, was there a result yesterday that sticks out to you as either a surprise or something particularly meaningful?
Oh, no doubt the biggest surprise on that list was the one at the bottom of that screen. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that coming when you look at – and I can't remember what the Texans numbers was. I think it was 19. I mean, it was very similar to what the Saints are facing tonight. And for them to beat the Chargers, I mean, that was pretty impressive. And I think, obviously, you look at what Cincinnati not just that they beat the Ravens, but I mean, you look at the numbers that Joe Burrow put up with 525 yards or whatever it was, fourth most in NFL history. I mean, that's really incredible that he was able to put up those kind of numbers against anybody. So that one really surprised. I mean, how they won surprised me. Look at the other ones. I don't know if any of those really surprised me. I thought the Colts would beat the Cardinals. I just think the Cardinals are like in a rough spot right now. So I wasn't really surprised by that one. I thought the Titans at home, I like their chance of winning that one as well. So the two that stick out to me would definitely be the Texans over the Chargers and the Bengals over the Ravens.
What's the attitude with the Saints? They get this loss from the Vikings yesterday that they needed. With everything that's gone wrong this year, it still feels from the outside looking in to me like this team's pretty confident and they think they can not only get into playoffs but maybe surprise some people.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we said earlier about the defense. I mean, I think we have the defense playing that well. You always feel like you have a chance. And this is a team that, I mean, we keep talking about it. I mean, they just haven't been healthy all season. So they feel like if they can ever, get some of these guys back, at this point, you're really talking about the Teron and Ryan Ramczyk. You get your two tackles back. You feel like the offense making, be a little better, and you got a chance. And, who knows what's going to happen tonight? Ian Book may have us. He may be the biggest story of the season after tonight. I mean, if he goes out there and lights it up, I mean, everything changes about what we're talking about. So I think this team, they do have confidence because they're still in it, and they know they haven't been dealt the best cards this season. They're still in the thick of the playoff race, and basically they control their own destiny out. I mean, if they win out, they're probably going to be in.
Yeah, that is true. Well, Rod, while we have you just for a couple more minutes, I want to get your thoughts on college football too. I know you dabble in the gambling world sometimes. These New Year's Six lines, particularly the semifinals, Alabama is 13.5-point favorite over Cincinnati, and you see Georgia 7.5-point favorite over Michigan. Who do you like against the spread in those games, and do you see either one being a straight up upset?
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to ask me about spread. If anybody who's been keeping up with our contest in the paper, they see I'm toward the bottom, so I'm not sure if I'm the right person to be asking this question. That's probably a Jim Derry question, but I'll chime in anyway. I think Michigan really has a good shot at beating Georgia. I mean, I don't know if it'll happen, but I just think the way they're playing right now, those 3 wins to the end of the season, I thought they were really, really dominant. As far as Cincinnati, I can see Cincinnati covering the spread. I don't think they'll beat Alabama, but look at how well they played against Georgia last year in whatever bowl it was. I mean, they played really well. So, I think Cincinnati has a good chance of covering, and I think Michigan could actually win outright. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Michigan got to the championship game. And on the flip side of that, I wouldn't be shocked if Georgia won the whole thing either. So that I'm really looking. I guess what I'm basically saying is I'm really looking forward to seeing Georgia and Michigan on Friday.
Yeah, that'll be a good one in the Orange Bowl. And then just to switch back to the pros before we let you go, we've got odds to win the Super Bowl here as well. This is just obviously your top 8 teams, it looks like. Who on here has the best value in your eyes from what you've followed in the league?
Man, I really like – I was actually thinking about this yesterday. Like, if I had to bet on which 2 teams to go, I think I would probably go with – and this is kind of based on how they're playing now and just kind of what I see as far as, just how they're doing. I think the Rams and Bills would be the 2 teams. I just like what Josh Allen's doing right now. I think the Rams are starting to sort of figure things out. And, they had a couple of games with some injuries and stuff. But I think, once you get Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, they're back now. And I think that would probably be my pick. I mean, I know Buccaneers is a safe pick, and I know the Chiefs are starting to peak a little bit. But man, I'm kind of leaning towards the Rams and Bills.
That's good. We don't like safe picks. Safe picks are boring.
Right. And I think Aaron Rodgers will be, if he gets another shot at it and they're at Lambeau again, maybe they don't let it slip through their fingers this time. But yes, it's a really interesting race this year. I think it's a lot of good teams that can win.
Zach, I got to tell you that I think Rod's a genius. He just mentioned my 2 preseason Super Bowl picks, Rams and Bills. So why not? I mean, just because it's Week 16, Rod, there's plenty of room on the bandwagon for you. We'll have you on.
Yeah, when the season started, I think I predicted the Titans. Maybe I was just kind of all in on the Julio Jones and AJ Brown, I was like all in on that with Derrick Henry. And, if
Well,
he comes
Derrick
back,
Henry's coming back.
If he comes back and I think they're still in the mix as well. So there's some really good teams that are in this thing.
Just looking at the predictions that all our Saints writers had in the Times-Picayune this morning, we'll end with this, Rod. I guess it goes to show those who are close to the team and talk to the guys every day feel that confidence, because 3 of the 4 of you, Amy Just, Luke Johnson, and Jeff Duncan, all actually took the Saints to win a close game tonight. You went the other way. You went with the Dolphins by 3, which is right on the spread. How are you thinking this game goes down, and sort of explain that pick?
I actually went back and forth on the pick. I wouldn't be shocked if this game went either way. And a lot of that, I think, is people who have been around the Saints just know how resilient they are. But, I mean, if you're just an outsider looking in, had no affiliation with this team, and you just looked at what you saw on paper, I mean, you just think all these COVID issues are going to, you think it'll catch up with this team. And that's what I just think will win out at the end. And I just think the attrition is going to end up hurting the Saints at the end of this game. But, again, I wouldn't be shocked either way if it went either way. But I do think missing those linebackers is going to really be tough. And I think the Dolphins will do whatever they can to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard game to predict. Look, we're going to do it here in a few minutes, and it's without knowing exactly any of the guys who are playing and not having seen them much before. It's difficult. So, Rod Walker, we do appreciate it. You got a little less than 3 hours. That elevator's pretty slow, so you better get up there. And we will talk to you tonight from the Superdome. Thank you.
All right. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all's picks, man. Make sure I'm not the only one picking the Dolphins here.
All right. And I don't think you will be, but that would be – we're not that big of homers here. So thank you, Rod.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. That's Rod Walker from the Times-Picayune. Again, the Dolphins 3-point favorites against the Saints tonight. We will pick this game at the end. But let's take a look back at those results. I want to give you guys a chance to talk here like we did with Rod. Obviously, the shocker of all shockers, if there was any survivors left who took the Chargers, that's a heartbreaker to lose on. But, look, it's the NFL, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you never, I think we've learned over the past 6 to 8 weeks, since we didn't have any upsets the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. And since then, there's been one major upset at least every week. And I can tell you that by looking at the people in my knockout pool and what's happened to them. So I'm going to be surprised there isn't one every week. So that's why when you look at, who has to win, who has to lose for the Saints to go to the playoffs. So, you talk about them controlling their own destiny. We'll get into the picks in a little bit. But realistically, they have to go 10-7, 9-8, but something major would probably have to happen for them to go 9-8 and get in. But so you just can't figure things out. And I guess that's what's the most fun about this season, as crazy it is and as weird as it is with COVID and all the other issues that are going on. You just never know what's going to happen from week to week. And you can't say, you can't say the Packers are going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. You can't say the Chiefs are going to be the number 1 team in the AFC. You don't know, because we still have 2 weeks plus 1 game left to go, and weird stuff's going to happen.
I think Zach is muted here. But yeah, it's weird from week to week. And I was just thinking, with all this kind of COVID things going on, I mean, there's no guarantee that you get a 2nd or 3rd seed that they're going to win in the first round of the playoffs. A few people hit the COVID list, and then all of a sudden you have a completely different team. I mean, the Saints can attest to that this week. We don't know what's going to happen going forward. So I think this is going to be the most interesting season for sure. It's going to be probably upsets in the playoffs. I would expect as well. I mean, it's kind of been serving true over the last 5 or 6 weeks in the NFL, and I wouldn't be surprised that could carry it over into the playoffs. So at this point, it's almost starting to get like March Madness. You get in the dance, anything can happen from there. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But in terms of surprises from Sunday, I would say the biggest surprise is the Bills pulling away from the Patriots. I thought, Patriots worked themselves back into the game. Bills have been in that spot before, and we saw what happened against the Bucs and some of the other games they lost this year. Josh Allen looked really good down the stretch, and that's exactly how you want your quarterback playing. with the playoffs nearing and trying to clinch an AFC East title. So Bills are definitely the team to watch in the AFC in terms of if they start to put things together. It could be a real Super Bowl chance for them this year after kind of being disappointing over the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys nailed it. The only thing that's for sure is that we won't be able to predict it. Now, it is interesting, though. I was playing around with the playoff predictor on ESPN. If the Saints win out, they're in. Okay, they control their own destiny. So 10-7, that Vikings loss helped them out. They are in yesterday. They are in if they win 3 in a row. If they should go 9-8, there's actually still, a decent chance. I mean, I know, yes, they would need some things to go their way. However, if you just plug in the favorite in every game, the Saints are in at 9-8 as the number 7 seed. Now, having said that, the favorite can change because the Rams play the 49ers in week 18. The Rams could have a COVID outbreak, and all of a sudden, instead of being 3.5-point favorites, they're 3-point dogs, just like the Saints. So you can't sit there and say that that's likely to happen. However, if the favorite wins every single game for the last 3 weeks, the Saints would get in at 9-8. So they're not in an impossible situation here.
Well, I mean, everything would have to happen the way for them to get in at 9-8. Everything. They have to have San Francisco would have to lose to the Rams. They have to win out. You can forget about Philadelphia because you're not going to catch Philadelphia. So you're basically battling the 49ers at that point. You're counting on the Saints to win 2 games in a row. One of them at Atlanta, who they already lost to Atlanta. They've already lost to Carolina. I know the situations were different. So I think the most realistic chance for them to get to the playoffs is what you said. I mean, to win their last 3 games, they control their own destiny. I didn't realize they controlled their own destiny until I was doing some tiebreaker stuff this morning and realized that they do beat out San Francisco in a 3-way tie. So if all 3 of them were to win out, Philadelphia would be the 6th seed and the Saints would be the 7th seed. So that's good news. But I mean, look, Sean Payton knows the realistics of all this, and it's not going to be like I think some of those other games where they had all the injury issues, and we just kind of like backs up against the wall and kind of threw the game away almost. Not necessarily. I mean, you're not trying to lose on purpose, but I think it's going to be a different kind of game tonight. I think there's going to be like major focus going on tonight. I think they realize what situation they're in. They know they control their own destiny. Whether they win or not is another story, but I think you're going to see a very focused team that plays a good game. I'd be surprised if they lose by more than a touchdown. Put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, yes, they control their own destiny. If you're going to lose one, obviously you can't pick ahead of time. This would be the one to lose because it's not a conference game, and you need those conference victories for tiebreakers. However, that does not mean it's not an enormous game. I mean, if you look at that playoff predictor, they're at 53% right now to make the playoffs. They lose, it's 30%. They win, it's 70%. I mean, so you're talking about a huge swing in one game. And it's late in the year. That's how it works. I mean, you're going to get big swings, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You don't need to go to the percentages to tell anybody that this is a big game. And it is for the Dolphins, too. Dolphins' chances are a little bit tougher because they still have some tough games left. They're at Tennessee, and then they host New England. And so their chances to win out are not as good as the Saints on paper anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's the biggest game of the year so far. And if you win it, then you play an even bigger one next week.
One thing, Zach, too, is the AFC is tougher to get in because if you remember that all the AFC teams had 9 home games this year. So hence why their records are a little bit better than the NFC. So it's a little bit tougher to get in the AFC than it is in the NFC. So, I mean, realistically, the Dolphins, I mean, you can't think that they have a really good chance of making the playoffs. Now, they don't know that because they've won 6 in a row, like you talked about. But if you had to pick which team you'd rather be, I'd rather be the Saints right now, even with all the issues that they have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're watching Odds and Ends here. I am live at Caesars Sportsbook in Harrah's, New Orleans, joined by Jim Derry and Devin Jackson. Drop us a comment on Facebook or YouTube. Give us a like or a subscribe. And be sure to catch all our videos. We'll be back 3:30 tomorrow with the Fantasy Roundup. Myself and Spencer Urquhart. It's Fantasy Football Championship Week. And then on Thursday at 4 o'clock, we will have At the Book, even though since we're at the book for today's show. We will not actually be back at the Sportsbook on Thursday, but still we'll preview the weekend and a lot of college football games. And we're going to get to some college football here in a minute. I did want to talk, we showed them when Rod was on, but the Super Bowl odds. And you talked about, Jim, the Rams and Bills were your picks. And for a while there, those teams were struggling. But they do seem to be the team, and I'll throw out the Cowboys too. Those are the teams that are rounding into form, right around the time the Bucs did last year, right when you like to see it.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me about the Rams, I don't think Matt Stafford has played very well as of late. He certainly didn't on Sunday. Sony Michel kind of came out of nowhere and had a really good game. I mean, we knew that Sony Michel had a lot of talent from all the time we've seen him in the SEC and then in New England. But so that kind of surprised me. I'm not sure if the Stafford's not usually used to being in this situation, to be honest. I mean, you got to think about it. He's only been in the playoffs with the Lions, once or twice? So this is a new spot for him. The Bills, I really like the way they're playing right now. And I really thought that was one of my big picks of the week. I thought they would come in and play the Patriots strong. They did. It was a different game. There wasn't a 60-mile-an-hour wind blowing. And Josh Allen has really started to limit some of the mistakes he was making for quite a few weeks in a row. That Bills defense is pretty good. So I still like the Rams and Bills overall, but it's really hard. If you're going to pick a favorite, it's hard not to like Kansas City because they are back looking like the Kansas City of old, or at least of 2 years ago. And they're going to be a tough team to beat down the stretch. Other than that, I don't really see any value. I mean, maybe if you want to take a flyer on the Cowboys, I'm not sold that they're going to be making a long run. And the Colts, to me, I mean, I just don't think they can win with Carson Wentz at quarterback.
I'll throw out there too, and I didn't put them on the screen because it just kind of ran out of room. But Devin, another team, the Titans are 20-1. You get Derrick Henry back. Is it worth it at 20-1? I don't know. I mean, maybe. And then the Cardinals, who I know are not playing well, but they were playing real well. Maybe they get back into form. They're 25-1, and the next team is the Bengals at 30-1. So there are some long shots, maybe worth thinking about. Devin, when you look at
sorry about that. I was muted. I started talking and then realized I was muted. But I would take, if there was a long shot on the board, I would take the Colts. I mentioned them a couple of weeks ago as a team starting to play well. And we always get those teams every few years where they start playing, getting hot down the stretch of the season, have a really good running game, solid defense. So I'm not saying the Colts are going to make a deep run. I think they can pull up maybe an upset or two, but just depending on the matchup. I mean, obviously they match up pretty well against the Bills, and we saw what they did to them. I don't know if they necessarily match up well against the Chiefs or some of the other top teams, but if they catch a good matchup and or continue to play well over the next few weeks, I mean, the Colts are a long shot, but that'll be the one long shot I'd probably be willing to take a risk on. I like the Bengals. I like their offense. I just don't think that, one, their offense is sustainable enough to score like that in the playoffs, and then two, their defense, although they have some really good pieces, I don't think they're there yet as a team.
We do have a couple of comments from Buck's Skull Gang, who I'm guessing is a Bucks fan. He's saying he's scared of the Saints. Look, the Saints are 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody thinks their offense is consistent enough to win 4 playoff games in a row. But I do think that if they get in, that's not the team a 2 seed wants to see, Jim. I mean, now they haven't been healthy all year long, but when they have been, that defense is legitimately scary.
I can tell you right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are rooting for the Miami Dolphins tonight, and they'll be rooting for the Carolina Panthers next week. And if the Saints win both of those games, they'll be rooting for the Atlanta Falcons in week 3. They do not want to play the Saints. You can joke. I don't know what it is, but they don't want to play the Saints in the playoffs. Not in the first round. I promise you. I don't know what it is. I mean, really, if you think about it, even in the playoffs last year, the Saints turned the ball over 4 times. If Jared Cook doesn't fumble the ball, the Saints go to Green Bay. And really, I was talking about it on Datitude earlier today with Jim Rapier, and I truly think that the team that got hosed by the Jared Cook fumble more than anyone was Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, because I think they win the Super Bowl if the Saints don't make that fumble in the play there. Because the Saints don't go to Green Bay and win, I don't think. So, the Bucs do not want to play this team. The Saints are probably going to be the 7th seed if they go to the playoffs. And I think there's a very, very good chance that Tampa Bay is the 2 seed. So if you're thinking playoffs and you're thinking Cinderella stories, and what Devin said a little while ago about COVID messing things up and weird things happening in the first round of the playoffs, that's one thing that certainly could happen that could be weird.
Tom Brady hadn't caught COVID yet. Seems like everybody else has, so you never know.
Tom Brady's not human.
Well, that's true. Robots can't catch COVID. Having said that, the team that actually controls its destiny for the number 2 seed right now is the Cowboys. If it's a 3-way tie with the Rams and Bucs. If it's a 2-way tie, the Bucs have the head-to-head. If it's a 3-way tie, the Cowboys get it on conference record. And so it could be Dallas. Again, from a Saints perspective, getting ahead of ourselves, they've got a lot of work to do to get there. But I do think they're a scary team if they get in. Want to switch the conversation here on odds and ends for 10, 15 minutes, and we'll talk some college bowl games. It's been a slow week, partly because with Christmas time, it's always a slow week. That's when the bowls slow down anyway, but also because you've had some cancellations, and we're continuing to see them. Memphis Y was canceled. Boston College at East Carolina was supposed to be going on right now. That one was canceled. So we've only had a handful of games over the past few days. Devin, this morning it was Western Michigan all over Nevada, a game you could kind of see coming because Nevada had a whole bunch of guys not playing. That was one I thought might get canceled just because Nevada might just say, screw this, we don't have enough players. Let's not go to Detroit and get killed. But credit to them, they did it. But when I know you've been watching these games, this is your thing. What are your thoughts on the weekend?
Yeah, wasn't a whole bunch going on. I'm really not super surprised by any of the results. I think most of us had UCF knocking out Florida. That just felt like a game where Florida wasn't going to be motivated to play, and that's exactly what happened. And UCF came out ready to play and beat Florida thoroughly in the trenches. So that game wasn't too much of a surprise. I was surprised that Western Michigan and Nevada wasn't much more of a game. I know Nevada is missing, pretty much most of their stars on offense or missed most of their stars on offense. But I thought they still could put up points. They really weren't competitive the majority of the game, so not too surprised about that. Them losing, but more surprised about the score. Surprised about Ball State. I did take them in big bucks to cover, and they didn't even get close to that. So was a little disappointed by their output in the bowl game. But I did mention in the bowl picks column that Georgia State was playing much better and playing like one of the better teams, in the back half of the season. So they ended up blowing out Ball State, which was not exactly something I saw happening. But, it was a pretty good weekend, though. It's going to be even better. Tomorrow they got like 4 or 5 games on and pretty much is spanning the whole day. And then obviously later this week we have the New Year's 6 bowl games and the playoff games. So it should be a good week upcoming for college football.
Yeah, I mean, it really does get going tomorrow. A lot of the Power 5 conference teams start playing tomorrow. And we want y'all to join in on the action. So if you're watching, you're a Louisiana resident, you can play in our Beat the Pros contest. And this is really cool. We're putting it together. We're going to do it for college football, NFL playoffs, March Madness, the Masters, the NBA playoffs, and the Major League playoffs. So 6 contests throughout the year. And we will have an expert, one of our beat writers at the Advocate and Times-Picayune, pick the games, and you try to beat them. If you beat them, you're entered into a drawing for a weekend stay for 2 right here at Harrah's New Orleans. You can stay at the hotel right across the way. You can come in here and play in the casino, and it's pretty cool, honestly. And then if you play in all 6 contests and you are the season-long winner, you win a trip for 2 to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. So that one that's the big prize, and it all starts this week. So you go to NOLA.com/beatthepros. The college football picks are ready to make. Just remember, you're going to pick the New Year's 6 games, and then you got to come back and pick the national championship game. And if you want to be in the running for that trip to Caesar's Palace, you've got to come back for the NFL playoffs, for March Madness, for the Masters. The games will be a little bit different each time, but you got to play all 6 contests. If you are the winner at the end of the year, you beat the experts, beat the pros, you will be headed to Las Vegas for a weekend stay at Caesar's Palace. So pretty cool deal. And having said that, let's look ahead at some of the college football lines, guys. The next couple days, as I said, it gets real busy. And it starts tomorrow. I think that's the Birmingham Bowl, Houston and Auburn. We have the Liberty Bowl. I love the storyline here. Mike Leach trying to beat his old team. Minnesota, West Virginia, I think are in the – is that the Cheez-It Bowl? It's in Phoenix, whatever the hell it is. And then on Wednesday, a couple of good games too. You got Clemson, Iowa State, and Oregon, Oklahoma, which really that's the Alamo Bowl. That one looks like it could have been a New Year's Six Bowl as of a month ago. So really pretty good games, Jim.
Minnesota, West Virginia. I can't believe you didn't remember the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. But I mean, how do you forget one that big? That's just ridiculous. But I just wanted to know in this Beat the Pros contest. I mean, we're not going to make them pick against Devin, are we? Because we won't have any winners.
No, we got to have a winner, so Devin's ineligible. We got to have somebody they can actually beat. Yeah,
that's what I figured. I mean, and look, if you go, people are missing out if they're not looking at our bowl picks each day that we put up, because we're actually all doing pretty well. Even me, I'm not doing terrible. I'm at, but you and Devin both over with your starting $1,000 balance. Devin's way over. He's over 1,200 now, and I'm right below the even mark. So we're all doing pretty well with that. People should check it out. I'm looking forward.
Spencer bringing up the rear, Jim?
Spencer is now bringing up the rear. Yes.
Yeah. All right. That's why we don't have him on the show. Sorry,
but that's okay. We don't. When we start doing college fantasy picks, he'll kick all of our butts in that. There are a couple games on this list, not the New Year's Six games. I know. Just looking at these, I'm really interested in Clemson and Iowa State. I think everybody's like everything I've seen. It's funny because all the experts that I've seen are just picking Clemson, but the line stayed pretty close to the same. So I think there's got to be some big money on Iowa State. I kind of like Iowa State as well. I'm really interested in that game. And then Houston and Auburn, I'm not sure which Auburn team's going to show up. If the really good one shows up, it should be an outstanding game. If the one that didn't play Alabama shows up, I'm not sure what we're going to get there. So those are the two games I really have my eye on, as well as Oklahoma and Oregon, obviously.
And Devin, your thoughts that I will add on that Houston Auburn game. It's kind of like you were saying with Clemson, Iowa State. Seems like just about everybody's on Houston, but the line's only ticked down half a point, and so that makes you think, okay, has there been some respected money come in on Auburn? That'll be one to watch too. But Devin, run down this list for us.
Yeah, NC State, UCLA, I think has a chance to be probably the best game tomorrow. I think it's two evenly matched teams, both pretty physical, both kind of programs that are like not quite at the elite tier of their conference, but like middle tier. Both teams came out very strong to start the season, but kind of fizzled down the stretch. NC State had that big upset win over Clemson earlier in the season that kind of let the Clemsons kind of fall down. And then you look at UCLA, they obviously beat LSU to start the season, but had a couple Pac-12 losses that, had people questioning, is this team any different than years past? So I think that game has a chance to be a really good one, really evenly matched game. I didn't even make a bet on the game because I thought it's one of those type of games that can be, a thriller back and forth all game long. So that's one that interests me. And then I'm interested to see what happens in the Clemson-Iowa State game. I think once again the Sharps are giving Iowa State a little bit more credit than they played this season earlier this year against Iowa. They were favored in that game, and Iowa beat them pretty soundly. I think Clemson will come out motivated. They didn't get back to the playoff, but people were starting to write them off. It's not a good program anymore. So I expect Dabo and Clemson to come out with some fire and play a really good game in that one.
One of my favorite things about this bowl season, because most of these games are exhibitions. Let's face it, not if you got money on them, but they are what they are. There were going to be 4 straight bowl games played at baseball stadiums, which is like just the weirdest, most trivial thing ever. But it was the Fenway Bowl tomorrow or on Wednesday. SMU and Virginia got canceled, so that ruined it. But there's still 3. That UCLA, NC State, the Holiday Bowl this year is at Petco Park because the old Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego is under renovation. Then you have that Guaranteed Rate Bowl. That one's at Chase Field, the Diamondbacks. And then you were going to have Fenway Bowl on Wednesday. And then the next game is the Pinstripe Bowl, Maryland and Virginia Tech. That one's at Yankee Stadium. So it's just kind of a cool get to see football in some different places.
I want
Let's
to see
move on
the
to
Wrigley Bowl.
Oh yeah. Well, didn't Northwestern play a game in Wrigley a couple years ago?
They did, and obviously the Bears, way back before any of us were really watching football, played in Wrigley Field.
I want to have a bowl game at Alec Box Stadium.
That would be outstanding.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Moving ahead to the New Year's Six. It starts Thursday. That's the Peach Bowl, Pitt and Michigan State. The ones that are starred there are your CFP semifinals, of course. And then on Saturday, on New Year's Day, you have the Fiesta Bowl. I don't know why they put the West Coast game first. I guess it's because the Sugar Bowl's always last, but it's the Fiesta Bowl, Rose Bowl, and Sugar Bowl. Outside of the semifinals, because we're going to talk a lot about those on Thursday's show, so let's hold off our picks on those. Any of the other New Year's Six bowls, these lines interest you guys?
I think the Ohio State Utah one interests me. Ohio State had one of their top receivers opt out for the draft, so that may affect the game just a little bit. I also think Utah has played tremendously against the spread when they're not favored this season as well. I would be interested in taking Utah plus 6.5 in that one. I think they're going to be a little bit better than what people are expecting them to be. Ohio State, I think, is still a really good team, but they struggle against teams that, kind of implement that power running game. They struggle with it all year long against Michigan, against Oregon. So I think Utah can run a little bit on Ohio State and kind of control the clock and keep it within that 6.5 point threshold. So I think that's the one game I think would be a good bet to place on Utah. I think Utah has a chance to cover that spread and make it a really good Rose Bowl game.
I don't have a pick on it, but the Sugar Bowl is I don't know where to go with that game. But Dave Aranda versus Lane Kiffin is a super interesting contrast of coaching personalities.
I think it is as well. That's one that I'm looking forward to. I think Ole Miss is just a better team in that game. I know Baylor has played well down the stretch, and I think they will be better as they go along in future years under Dave Aranda. But I just think Ole Miss has the edge there with Matt Corral playing, and I think that Ole Miss wins that one easy. The one that I keep looking at is Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. I am really interested to see is Notre Dame going to come out with a chip on their shoulder now that Brian Kelly's gone. I think they are, actually. So I'm really looking forward to that game because I still think Notre Dame is a really good football team. I was obviously just on the outside edge of the Big Four there, and Oklahoma State turns over the ball a bunch. That's actually my favorite play of the four. That not the one with the asterisk next to them, but I just think Notre Dame's going to come out and play really good football and force Oklahoma State 2 or 3 turnovers.
Yeah, I mean that thing could be a super defensive struggle. Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame defensive coordinator, taking over as a head coach. Oklahoma State's had a great defense all year long, so I think points are at a premium there. Could be a lot of fun. It's good. They're good games. I mean, I just fingers crossed that we get to see them all. That there's no COVID issues that cause anybody to have to drop out. And I keep thinking this Omicron is going to be fairly quick. I still think we've got another week or so of lots of positive tests and stuff. But hopefully by the time the NFL playoffs roll around, we're in good shape. You're watching Odds and Ends on bet.nola.com, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook right here at Harrah's New Orleans is your closest one. Let's circle back to the NFL. We're going to end with Dolphins Saints predictions for tonight. But first of all, a look ahead at Week 17. And speaking of COVID issues, there's reports out of Charlotte this morning that the Panthers are dealing with their own outbreak. No specifics yet as far as what sort of players or how many it might include. But if the Saints can get their own players back for next week, they figure to be pretty big favorites here, Jim. And right now the number's more than a touchdown.
The word is that there were about 25 Panthers who just said they had COVID and decided to go home. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, the Panthers are a mess. I mean, they're just an absolute mess. I think, how can you go from 3-0 to now a coach and Matt Rule, who very well could be looking for a job when this season's over. That they have just turned into just a dumpster fire. So, look, if the Saints can win tonight, it is a huge deal for them because To me, it'll come down to whether they can go to Atlanta and win or not. And I think obviously they would have the edge there. They might even be favored. So as far as tonight goes, again, I think the Saints are going to come out with a focused effort. For them to win, the game needs to be either in the upper teens or the lower 20s. With that, I do think they are going to find some kind of way to win. I don't know why I think this, because normally in a situation like this, I'd be on the other side. But I just think they're going to come up with some kind of game plan and some kind of weird way to pull this thing off. And so I'm going to say Saints 19, Dolphins 17.
But you bet the over.
I don't know. I'm just I don't know. It's just what I felt 3 days ago is different than today. That's why it's so hard to handicap, especially during. I mean, how can you handicap during COVID times? You know, we're making picks on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and even on Thursdays when games happen 4 days later. You both know. I mean, how could I possibly know that Demario Davis and Quan Alexander aren't going to play?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I actually agree with you on the over as well. I don't know.
You could say
it's very difficult.
You could say, okay, let's say 20-18. How's that?
There you go. I like that better. I just like the continuity.
You're right. You're right.
Let's throw those Week 17 lines back up one more time. I just want to point out there's a couple of really, really interesting games. Like as a neutral, Chiefs Bengals. I mean, come on, after what Joe Burrow did last week, that's a game you just got to see, right? Rams Ravens could be interesting if Lamar Jackson is back, or Tyler Huntley. I don't know that the way the Ravens defense is playing, quite frankly, doesn't inspire confidence.
They're going to take it apart.
And then Cardinals Cowboys. We'll see if the Cardinals can kind of get things turned around. And Vikings Packers. I mean, really, from a Saints perspective, if the Vikings can't win at Lambeau, they're basically out of this race, and it's down to 3 teams for 2 spots. It would be down to Philadelphia, San Francisco, and New Orleans for 2 spots if the Vikings lose that game.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting games on this board. And looking at the lines, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens-Rams line went up because we still don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to play this upcoming week. They got more injuries and more people in the COVID list for the Ravens. So I don't know. The Ravens have, after looking really good to start the season, they may be on the outside looking in for this playoff race because they had got hit with all the injuries and all COVID at the wrong time. I mean, they've really dropped the ball this last half of the season, and whether it's going for 2 to win games or going for 2 and kind of put themselves in a hole. They have struggled really down the stretch. So that game, that'll be a line to watch. I would try and get it early because I really do think that line is going to go up by the end of the week.
As crazy as the NFC playoff race is, the AFC is probably crazier. The Chiefs are the only team that's clinched the playoff spot. You have 4 teams at 9 and 6. And then if the Dolphins were to win tonight, you'd have 4 teams at 8 and 7, plus the Steelers are 7-1. So you have 9 teams within a game and a half of each other for the last 4 playoff spots. So it's like just complete insanity in the AFC. And we'll talk about odds to make the playoffs on Thursday. It's a good time to do it because there's no Thursday night game this week, which I blame Devin Jackson for, quite frankly. All right, so Jim went 20-18 Saints. Devin, what is your official prediction for Monday Night Football tonight?
I'm going to go the Saints to win as well. I'm going to go 24-17. I think the over hits, and I think they're going to run behind Alvin Kamara and kind of that and let him lead the game. And I think Ian Book plays okay and plays mistake-free football. Doesn't do anything spectacular, but does just enough to move the football up and down the field.
All right. I'm going to ruin the continuity because I feel like we can't all 3 pick the Saints. I'm picking the Dolphins. I actually there was a guy in the Dolphins jersey who walked by about 10 minutes ago, and I overheard him shouting that he bet the Saints money line. And I don't know if that was just to get people off his back, or if it's just the thing that brings us all together as sports fans is you never have confidence in your own team. And you always think the sky's about to fall. So I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But I just, look, maybe Ian Book is the second coming of if not Drew Brees, then at least a capable NFL starter. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe Alvin Kamara has a big game. Maybe this defense is deep enough. But that's a lot of maybes for me. And I'm taking the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins will – it's going to be similar to the games we saw in the Saints' 5-game losing streak where they played pretty well for a couple of quarters. They get, especially on defense, they stay in it. But by the time they get it going on offense, the defense is worn out, and that's that. And I'll take the Dolphins 27-16. How's that?
No. They can't score 22. That's too many points for Tua. They can't score 27. That's way too many.
No, fantasy football has no bearing on my handicap.
Oh, that's not right. You need to refigure that a little bit. That doesn't
Maybe
work for me.
It's 27-16 with a defensive touchdown.
Okay, all right. Well, that maybe I can live with. We'll say this before we go off the air, Zach. Just put this in your little memory bank. Tom Brady, 6th-round pick. Ian Book, 6th-round pick. Tom Brady. Who the hell is Tom Brady? Drew Bledsoe, 10 years, $100 million. And next thing you know, Tom Brady is taking over the team. So who knows what you
But no pressure, Ian. No pressure.
No, none at all. None at all.
I think he's got plenty of pressure. Although I have to say, he's saying all the right things. He sure seems like he wants the spotlight. We'll see how he performs tonight. Saints and Dolphins at 7:15 on ESPN. Follow us along on NOLA.com. We'll have all the coverage. And on bet.nola.com, we'll be back 3:30 tomorrow, Fantasy Roundup. And the three of us will be back at 4 o'clock Thursday for At the Book. Go to NOLA.com/Caesar. Sign up for the Caesar Sportsbook app. Get your bonus today. And until next time, Jim Derry and Devin Jackson, I'm Zach Ewing. We'll see you next time.